Welcome to a quick overview of a couple of break crop demonstrations on Eyre Peninsula in 2024 as part of the Building Resilience Break Crop Suitability Across Landscapes project, or as we know it, the Break Crop Project. There are two Eyre Peninsula sites, one at Lock on the Central Eyre Peninsula and another at Ungara on the Lower Eyre Peninsula. Sites have also been established in the Upper North and on the Murray Plains region of South Australia. This project is an Upper North Farming Systems-led SA Drought Hub funded project with Eyre EP delivering the Eyre Peninsula component in conjunction with SADI. The aim of the project was to set up local break crop demonstration paddocks to share information about break crop options and agronomics in different environments across South Australia. Crop establishment, soil testing, in-crop monitoring, yield and economic analysis, ground cover, stubble residues, and benefits for the following crop are all being monitored and recorded. Here's what happened on the EP sites in 2024. Let's head to Lock. The site at Lock focused on soil zones but was significantly impacted by drought and frost in season 2024. The break crops compared were lupins and lentils, both commonly grown break crops on the Central Eyre Peninsula. Lupins are more suited to acidic sandy soils, while lentils are better suited in alkaline heavier soil types. Both have different risks and benefits in a Central Eyre Peninsula system. Lupins and lentils were sown parallel across the three zones. Zone 1 was a sandy loam that Lubin described as the good zone. Zone 2 was a sand and Zone 3 was a heavier soil. Ready? So we're here today with Lubin Stringer at the Lock break crop site. Thanks Lubin for being involved in this trial. Firstly, what crops did you compare here?
We grew lentils and lupins. The reason for trying these break crops on this farm was traditionally here we've had vetch brown manure as our break crop. However, it got increasingly frustrating when our wheat crop following the vetch gets frosted and we have 100% loss in some areas. So it turns out there's 2 years in a row we don't make any money off of that dirt, and we can't continue to do that. So we're trying to investigate ways of being able to make a bit of money in the break crop phase, still have the benefits of the break crop, grass control, adding nitrogen into the soil and increasing the soil health, but also be able to get a little bit of money in that phase and hopefully offset the big risk of the frost in the wheat phase when we're trying to have our cash crop.
So why did you choose the zones that you put these two in?
So this farm has a history of frost. We seem to have a certain amount of frost every year here. And so although this trial initially had nothing to do with frost, in my mind I'm trying to work out what's the best break crop to grow on this farm. And frost has a major impact on all of our crops we grow here. So for me, the zones were set up in the severity of frost risk.
Was there anything during the season that stood out to you that you observed in either of the break crop types?
Yeah. In this zone where we're standing right now, through August and September, we had 5 occurrences where the ground temperature, or the temperature in the crop canopy went to below 5 degrees, and the crop looked terrible following that. So I was actually really surprised at how well both crops recovered and still made grain, made as much grain as what they did in the end. That actually really did surprise me. So obviously both crops are certainly a little bit resilient to frost if it happens early enough. I think a later frost would probably do a lot more damage, but they were able to continue to make grain after the frost, which surprised me.
So what were the final yields in the two crop types, and did this go the way that you were expecting?
So the lupins won in the yield, which I did expect because there was frost here. The lupins yielded 800 kilograms a hectare, average over 250 hectares, and the lentils averaged 250 kilos a hectare over their 80 hectare area. And yes, because of the growing conditions during the year, that was what I expected coming into harvest. I actually didn't quite expect that much grain, but I did expect to be a fair difference between the lupins and the lentils.
So has this trial raised any more questions for you?
Yeah, most certainly. I think what we've found here this year has been valuable information. However, each year is different. And I think that the same questions need to be continued to answer over a few years so that we can be more confident with our decision. We're not going to wholeheartedly change the way we do things just for 1 year. We'll need to continue to trial it and see how it performs over a number of years.
The average yields across the paddock were 250 kilograms per hectare for lentils and 800 kilograms per hectare for lupins. Both crop types had significant yield variability across the zones, but in the end, the lupins were most profitable for 2024. The demonstration did show that lentils had more sensitivity to frost, and while frost wasn't the focus of this demo, frost risk is a relevant consideration for this area. Let's go back to our key observations and what we saw across the season. Crop establishment. The 3 soil zones had relatively similar crop establishment. Soil testing. The pH was close to neutral across the soil zones. Economic analysis. In 2024, lupins were the most profitable as they are more tolerant to frost. Stubble residues. The lentil crop left the soil naked and uncovered after low biomass production in the dry season. In-crop monitoring. September frost during flowering set back both crops significantly. Lupins in the sandy soil looked healthier throughout the dry season. Yield analysis. Lupins yielded highest in season 2024. Ground cover. Both crops looked good for the start of the season, but persistent dry conditions combined with frost resulted in poor ground cover. Benefits for the following crop. Well, we'll find out as soon as the 2025 season progresses. Increasing drought resilience can be addressed through the integration of appropriate break crops into these environments. Key drought resilience actions include soil improvements, nitrogen fixation through legumes. Diversified crop rotation spreads drought risk over different crop types and provides the opportunity to utilise drought-tolerant species and cultivars. The negative impact of soil constraints can be reduced when matched with the appropriate crop, for example, lentils grown on alkaline soils. And the possibility of higher returns with reduced nitrogen fertiliser costs and the opportunity to grow high-value break crops like lentils. Building Resilience Break Crop Suitability Across Landscapes is an SA Drought Hub funded project led by Upper North Farming Systems, delivered on Eyre Peninsula by AREP and SADI. Thanks to Lube and Stringer for hosting the trials and being willing to be interviewed. Thank you to Buddy Chowdhury for undertaking the site monitoring throughout 2024. For more information about this project, head to the AREP website.